The van coughed once, twice, then died on the uneven strip of forgotten highway like it had been waiting for the perfect moment to betray them. Rain hammered the windshield with a violence that felt personal, a relentless tattoo that echoed inside the metal shell of the vehicle. The women of the Virginia bitches sat in stunned silence, each of them instinctively holding their breath as if the storm outside were listening. "Try it again," growled Sable, their lead guitarist, ink-covered, sharp-tongued, and always trying to convince the world she wasn't afraid of anything. Riley, the drummer and designated driver for the night, turned the key. The engine wheezed like a dying animal and fell silent again. "That's it," Riley whispered. "We're screwed." In the back, June, the bassist and the softest soul among them, pressed her forehead to the cold window. "There's nothing out here. Where even are we?" No one had an answer. Their GPS had gone berserk miles ago, blinking erratic directions until it finally displayed a single, impossible message. "You are here." A joke, probably, some glitch, but the longer they drove, the more it felt like the road itself had swallowed them whole. The storm intensified. Lightning split the sky in jagged veins, illuminating a stretch of road that looked like it had been abandoned for decades. The asphalt buckled and cracked, swallowed by weeds, while trees loomed over them like skeletal spectators. Sable kicked the passenger door open. "We walk. Somewhere around here there's gotta be a house, a station, something." Riley hesitated. "We're in the middle of nowhere, Sable. This is the kind of place people disappear in." "Good," Sable snapped. "Then we fit right in." They grabbed what little they needed, flashlights, jackets, and June's bass case because she refused to leave it behind, and stepped into the storm. The rain was freezing, sharp, almost metallic in smell. Riley tasted iron on her tongue and frowned. "Does the rain smell weird to you?" June nodded slowly. "Like blood." Sable smirked. "Metal." But even she didn't sound convinced. They trudged along the ruined road until the silhouette of a town emerged from the darkness, a cluster of collapsed roofs, leaning houses, and a single flickering neon sign that read, "Havens Ridge, Home of Tradition." The sign buzzed like it was struggling to stay alive. "This place looks dead," Riley muttered. "Then maybe they'll let us in," Sable answered. As they stepped through the threshold of the town, the storm abruptly softened, like something had drawn a curtain between them and the rest of the world. The silence that followed was unnatural, thick, suffocating, aware. June shivered. "Guys. I don't think we should be here." "Too late," Sable said, shining her flashlight down the main street. Every building seemed wrong, too tall or too narrow, windows shaped like eyes, chimneys bent like broken fingers. But what made Riley's skin crawl was the absence of sound. No wind. No animals. Not even the hum of electricity. Just quiet. They approached what appeared to be a general store. The windows were fogged, smeared with something dark. Sable pushed the door open. A bell chimed, a thin, discordant note that trembled in the air. Inside, shelves stood half-empty, lined with dusty jars and unrecognizable packaged goods. A smell drifted from the back, sweet, rotten, clinging. Riley covered her nose. "What died in here?" A voice answered from the shadows. "You did." The three women froze. A figure emerged, the gaunt shape of an old man with skin stretched too tightly across his bones. His eyes were milky white yet disturbingly focused. "You stepped onto cursed land," he rasped. "Havens Ridge takes what it wants. And lately, it's hungry." Sable stepped forward. "Look, old man, we just need help. Our van died back there." The man shook his head violently. "You shouldn't have come. He's already seen you." June trembled. "Who?" The man's jaw quivered as if he wanted to say the name but feared it more than death itself. "The warlock," he whispered. "The ruler of this town." The feeder of its children. The one who commands the devourers. The three women exchanged horrified glances. Sable forced a smirk. Now you're just trying to scare us. The man stepped closer, his voice suddenly urgent. Leave. Now. Before they smell you. Before he finds you. Behind them, the door slammed shut. Not by the wind. Not by the storm. But as if the town itself wanted to keep them inside. And from somewhere deep within Haven's Ridge. Something growled. The growl echoed through the store like something dragging claws against the inside of the walls. June clutched her base case like a shield, her breath trembling out in sharp, uneven bursts. Riley lifted her flashlight, sweeping the beam across the aisles. Nothing. But the sound, wet, animalistic, deliberate, felt close. Too close. The old man lurched toward the front window, his hands shaking violently as he pulled down a cracked, yellowed shade. They're awake now, he muttered. The devourers don't like new blood in town. Sable stepped forward. Look, old man. My name is Merritt, he snapped, suddenly fierce. And if you value your skin, you'll lower your voice. They hear everything. Riley whispered, who? Cannibals? Animals? What's out there? Merritt's eyes twitched. Not animals. Not men. Not anymore. A thud shook the wall. Then another. Something scraped along the siding, sniffing, snorting, dragging knuckles or claws like it was trying to find a way in. Sable stiffened. We need weapons. Merritt pointed to the back room. There's a hatchet and a carving blade. But weapons won't save you from what rules this place. The warlock, June whispered. Merritt flinched at the name. Riley pushed past him. Fine, then tell us how to get out. You don't, Merritt said. The warlock decides who leaves. And he hasn't allowed it in decades. June swallowed hard. So what, he just keeps people here. He keeps what he likes, Merritt said. And he feeds what he creates. Another growl rolled through the night, louder this time, primal, hungry. Is there a place we can hide? Riley asked. Merritt's eyes darted toward the ceiling. Not here. The scent will bring them. We go to the chapel, fast. Sable raised an eyebrow. A chapel? In a cannibal town? Built before he took over, Merritt murmured. Before the devourers. It still holds some power he hasn't corrupted. He grabbed a rusted lantern and pushed open a hidden door behind the counter. A narrow alley lay beyond, swallowed by shadows. Stay close, Merritt warned. And whatever you do, don't look them in the eyes. The three women exchanged terrified glances. Then stepped into the alley. The moment they were outside, the air changed. It felt heavier, like breathing through wet cloth. Riley sensed movement between the buildings, shapes too hunched, too twitchy to be human. The alley twisted between crumbling structures until it spilled into a street lined with crooked lampposts. Each one flickered like a dying heartbeat. June grabbed Riley's arm. Do you see that? Across the street, something crouched behind an overturned cart. Its limbs jittered unnaturally, jerking like a puppet on invisible strings. The lantern light caught a glimpse of skin, grayish, stretched thin, pulsing as if something moved underneath it. Merritt hissed, "Don't stare." But June couldn't look away. The creature's head snapped up. Its eyes, milky white and sunken, were wrong. Not like an animal. Not like a human. More like something that remembered being human and hated the memory. It let out a wet, rattling inhale. And smiled. June screamed. The thing sprang forward on all fours, limbs cracking as it ran, teeth clicking like bone wind chimes. Run! Merritt shouted. The women bolted across the street. The creature slammed into the ground behind them, skidding on cracked claws as it turned to give chase. Riley could feel its breath on her back, hot, rotten, hungry. Sable grabbed a loose brick and hurled it. It smashed into the creature's face. The thing barely flinched. Faster! Merritt roared, reaching the steps of an old stone building. Riley stumbled through the open door first. June followed, sobbing. Sable pushed Merritt inside and slammed the heavy wooden door shut. Claws scraped along the outside, dragging deep, splintering gouges across the wood. Then a voice, high, wheezy, mocking, whispered through the cracks. Fresh meat. June collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. Sable leaned against the door, breathing hard. Riley turned to Merritt. What are those things? Merritt sank onto a pew, his face hollow. They used to be the townspeople, he whispered. But the warlock, he corrupted them. Twisted them. Now they obey his hunger. June wiped her eyes. Why us? Why did they come after us so fast? Merritt's gaze fell to June's base case. Because you brought something new into their world, he murmured. Something he wants. Riley frowned. A guitar case. No, Merritt said, voice trembling. The sound of life. And then, from deep inside the chapel, another sound answered. Not growling. Not whispering. Breathing. Like something already waiting for them. The breathing came from the far end of the chapel, slow, ragged, impossibly deep. Like lungs filled with soil and centuries. Riley's flashlight trembled in her hand as she raised the beam toward the altar. Tell me that's you, Sable whispered to Merritt. Merritt's expression collapsed. If that were me, child, we'd already be dead. The chapel interior stretched longer than it looked from outside, its pews warped and peeling, its walls carved with symbols too old and too wrong to belong to any church. The stained glass windows were shattered, but the frames remained, each depicting distorted saints with their eyes gouged out. Riley swallowed hard. Something's in here with us. June clutched her base case tighter. We shouldn't have come. The breathing grew louder. Wet. Labored. Hungry. Sable took a step forward despite Riley's frantic motion to stop her. If something's in here, we need to know what it is. No. Merritt hissed. The warlock places watchers in holy places. Things that remember light but answer only to darkness. June's voice cracked. Watchers? Guardians of his domain, Merritt whispered. And they smell fear. Sable muttered, then we're screwed. A sudden scraping echoed across the stone floor. All three women jolted. Something massive shifted in the shadows behind the altar, too big to be human, too quiet to be animal. Riley's beam finally caught movement. A hand. Or what used to be one. Long, skeletal fingers dragged across the floor, nails clicking like insect legs. The limb pulled forward a hulking silhouette, twisted spine, ribcage exposed, skin stretched over a face that had no mouth, only a screen-shaped void. June's breath hitched. Oh my God. The thing rose higher and higher until it loomed nearly 8 feet tall, its joints bending the wrong ways, its hollow eye sockets glowing faintly with a sickly pale light. Riley stumbled back. Merritt, what is that? A watcher, he whispered. A thing stripped of voice and soul, left only with hunger and obedience. Blind, but not deaf. The watcher jerked its head to the side, sniffing the air. The void where a mouth should have been twitched, like it wanted to speak but couldn't. Sable gripped the hatchet she'd taken earlier. If it can't see. Don't be stupid, Riley hissed. Sable, don't. But Sable stepped forward anyway, adrenaline drowning out every rational thought. Hey, she shouted, raising the hatchet. Over here. Merritt lunged to stop her, but he was too slow. The Watcher's head snapped toward Sable with horrifying precision. "Oh hell," she breathed. "It can hear everything." The creature lunged with a speed impossible for something so broken-looking. Sable dove behind a pew as the Watcher slammed into it, splintering the wood like twigs. Riley grabbed June and dragged her behind another pew, heart hammering. The creature sniffed, listening, tracking. Merritt grabbed Riley's arm and whispered frantically, "The hymn pit, under the altar. It leads beneath the town. A safe place, for now." June's lip trembled. "Under the town? That sounds worse." "It's the only way," Merritt insisted. Sable locked eyes with them, nodding as if to say go. She tightened her grip on the hatchet. The Watcher dragged itself free of broken wood and turned toward her again. Sable darted down the aisle, smashing a candelabra onto the floor. The metal clatter echoed, drawing the Watcher toward her. "Go," she yelled. "Before this thing turns me into confetti." Riley hesitated, torn between running and helping. But Merritt yanked her violently toward the altar. "She chose to buy you time. Do not waste it." They reached the altar just as the Watcher hurled a pew across the chapel, splinters exploding like shrapnel. June screamed as Riley shoved her toward the carved base. Merritt pulled open a hidden latch. A narrow stone stairway yawned beneath, damp, black, descending into earth. "Hurry," he urged. June climbed down first, clutching her base case like a lifeline. Riley followed, flashlight shaking. Merritt came last, slamming the hatch above them just as the Watcher screeched, an awful, airless sound that felt like metal scraping bone. Darkness swallowed them. Only Riley's light remained. June whispered, voice trembling. "Do you think Sable is okay?" But Merritt's expression told the truth. "No one distracts a Watcher for long," he murmured. "Pray she dies before he reaches her." "Who?" Riley choked out. "The Watcher." Merritt shook his head slowly. "No. The Warlock." And from above, muffled but unmistakable, Sable's scream tore through the chapel. Sable's scream ricocheted through the stone passageway, muffled, fading, strangled halfway into something that didn't sound human anymore. Riley froze on the stairs. Her breath hitched, and her knees buckled as if her body finally realized what her mind refused to accept. "Sable," she whispered, reaching toward the darkness above them. Merritt grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "Don't. If the Watcher hasn't taken her already, the Warlock will. You go back up there, child, and you won't return." Riley pulled away from him, shaking. "We can't just leave her." June's voice cracked, trembling with dread. "Riley. Riley, she's gone." "No," Riley snapped, as if anger could drown her terror. "She's not dead. I heard her. She screamed, she's still alive." "That scream wasn't life," Merritt murmured, eyes hollow. "It was the sound of the Warlock claiming what he wants." June covered her ears. "Stop. Please stop." But the screaming had already stopped. Everything had stopped. The silence was the worst part. Riley turned back toward the stairs, ready to climb, fight, die, anything except abandon her friend. But then she heard something else. Something that froze her blood mid-heartbeat. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming down the stairs. Merritt's face drained of all color. He found the hatch. Riley's voice thinned into terror. "Who?" Merritt didn't blink. "The Warlock." The footsteps descended one step. Then another. Each one measured, deliberate, savoring. June clutched her base case so tight her knuckles turned bone white. Riley grabbed her arm and shoved her deeper into the tunnel. "Run," Riley whispered. "Now." They pushed farther into the underground corridor, the air turning colder, wetter, alive with the faint vibrations of something moving through the walls. The stone passage twisted and spiraled downward. Their footsteps echoed like panicked heartbeats. Behind them, the footsteps on the stairs stopped. Silence. Then, a low, guttural exhale slid into the tunnel. June whimpered. "He's breathing on us." "No," Merritt whispered. "He is smelling you." Riley nearly tripped as the tunnel widened into a circular chamber supported by rotting wooden beams. Ancient script was carved into the walls, symbols that made Riley's eyes burn if she stared too long. June shivered violently. "Where are we?" "Haven's Ridge was built on old ground," Merritt said, lighting the lantern again. "Older than the church. Older than the people who settled here. The warlock discovered this place first, then he shaped the town around it." "Shaped?" Riley echoed. Merritt nodded grimly. "He was not always a warlock. Once he was a man. A man who learned the wrong truths. A man who fed the earth with the dead until the earth fed him back." June backed away from the marked walls. "I don't want to hear this." "I don't." A distant metallic clang cut through her words. The sound of the hatch slamming open. Merritt's throat tightened. "He's in the tunnels." Riley's flashlight flickered. She slapped it, but the beam only grew weaker. June's voice quivered into panic. "Why is he after us?" "Why us?" Merritt swallowed hard. "He feels life like heat. The Devourers are cold things. Empty. But you, your music, your defiance, your fire, he hasn't tasted souls like that in decades." "That's not comforting," Riley snapped. "It wasn't meant to be." A faint whisper drifted through the corridor. Not human. Not echo. More like a voice that crawled inside their ears. "Come, back." Riley stiffened. "Sable." June shook violently. "That's not her." The lantern flame dimmed as if smothered. The air grew thick with a smell like burnt hair and wet soil. Merritt's eyes widened. "He's close. The warlock strangles the light around him. We need to move, now." They dashed down another passage, splashing through ankle-deep water. Riley could hear breathing behind them, heavy, calculated, mocking. "Riley," June whispered. "He's playing with us." Riley wanted to reassure her, but her throat had closed. Her mind replayed Sable's scream again and again until it didn't sound like Sable anymore. Then, from the tunnel behind them, a voice spoke. Smooth. Deep. Too calm. "Why run, when you came here to be saved?" Riley turned, and saw him. A tall, thin figure emerging from the dark, wearing tattered ceremonial robes that breathed as if alive. His face was hidden behind a bone mask engraved with symbols that pulsed faintly like veins. His fingers were long and sharpened, stained with something black. June dropped her bass case, choking on fear. Merritt collapsed to his knees. "Don't look at him, don't." Too late. The warlock lifted a single finger. June gasped. Her body seized. And she was dragged backward by an invisible force. "No." Riley lunged, grabbing June's wrist. June's eyes filled with terror as she was pulled toward the masked figure. "Riley, please, don't let go." Riley screamed, muscles tearing as she held on. The warlock tilted his head. And June stopped screaming. Her body jerked once. Twice. Then went limp in Riley's hands. Riley shrieked as she lost her grip, and June's body slid into the warlock's waiting arms. He stroked June's face with a tenderness more horrifying than violence. "Such sweet fear," he murmured. "Such beautiful souls." He lifted his mask slightly. Just enough for Riley to see something moving beneath it. Something alive. Something hungry. "Run along," he whispered. I'll come for you next. And with June in his grasp, the warlock vanished into the dark, like a nightmare closing its eyes. Riley collapsed, shaking uncontrollably. Sable was gone. June was gone. The tunnels felt endless. And the warlock was hunting. Riley didn't remember how long she sat on the wet stone floor, shaking. Minutes? Seconds? Time had no meaning in the tunnels. It stretched and twisted, pulsing like a living thing, breathing with her fear. June was gone. Sable was gone. Child, Merritt whispered, laying a trembling hand on her shoulder. You must get up. If you stay here, he'll return for you. Riley didn't look at him. Her voice trembled with broken rage. I should have held on. I should have. You couldn't save her, Merritt said softly. No one saves those he chooses. Riley finally turned, fury smothering the grief that threatened to pull her apart. Then why are you still alive? Why hasn't he taken you? Merritt looked away, shame tightening his mouth. Because he had once served the warlock. Riley could see it etched into his face. But there was no time to unravel that now. The tunnel around them rumbled, dust drifting from the ceiling like dead snow. He took June to the feast hall, Merritt whispered, voice cracking. The what? Merritt closed his eyes, as if saying it aloud might summon it faster. The place where the devourers eat. Where he performs his rituals. Where he prepares the souls he collects. Riley felt her stomach twist. June is alive. For now, he said. But she won't be for long. Riley stood so fast she nearly slipped. Then show me where he took her. Merritt grabbed her arm. Riley, listen. No. You don't get to tell me to run. Not anymore. Merritt stared at her for a long moment, then lowered his gaze, defeated. You cannot fight the warlock. But, you might delay him. And if you're very lucky, you might take her body before she becomes something else. Riley swallowed hard. Take me to her. The tunnels widened as they walked, the air growing warmer, humidity clinging to their skin like sweat from an unseen furnace. Strange markings were carved into the stone, spirals, open jaws, disfigured silhouettes that looked like people stretching into inhuman shapes. Riley tried not to look too closely. The deeper they went, the more Riley felt eyes watching her, silent and cold, just beyond her peripheral vision. Shadows that didn't match their bodies crept along the walls. After what felt like forever, the tunnel opened into a massive cavern lit by torches that flickered with sickly green flames. Riley almost vomited at the smell. Rot. Blood. Metal. Something burning that should never burn. This is the feast hall, Merritt whispered. The cavern floors were covered in bones, hundreds, maybe thousands, human bones mingled with something more twisted, rib cages too wide, skulls too elongated, limbs that bent wrong. Things that had changed. Things that had become devourers. Riley covered her mouth. This is hell. No, Merritt murmured. Hell would be kinder. A low moan echoed through the chamber. Riley stiffened. June. Riley bolted forward, ignoring Merritt's frantic whisper to stop. She stumbled across slippery stone until she reached the center of the cavern. And froze. June hung suspended above a stone altar, bound by sinewy tendrils that pulsed like veins. Her eyes fluttered open, red and glazed with terror. Her skin had started to change, pale, bruised, almost translucent. Like something inside her was feeding. Riley, she whispered weakly. Riley's legs nearly buckled. June, I'm here, baby, I'm here. I'm getting you down. June shook her head in small, jerky movements. No, you can't, he's inside, he's. A voice from the darkness answered for her. Almost done. Riley's blood froze. The warlock stepped into the torchlight, carrying a staff made of fused vertebrae. The bone mask tilted, watching Riley not with eyes, but with hunger. "You shouldn't have followed me," he said calmly. "Love makes mortals foolish." Riley screamed and lunged at him with a broken shard of bone she'd grabbed from the floor. The warlock moved with infuriating grace, flicking his wrist. Riley was thrown across the cavern like a rag doll. Her back hit a pile of bones. Pain exploded through her ribs. She gasped, struggling to breathe as she crawled to her knees. The warlock approached June, laying a gentle hand on her cheek. "She has the sound," he murmured. "The spark. The music of the living. I will savor it." "Stop!" Riley cried, stumbling forward. The warlock turned his head slightly. "You will have your turn. The third soul completes the song." June suddenly arched her back as the tendrils tightened. She screamed, raw, choking, agonizing. "Riley, Riley, help me, please." Riley sprinted, ignoring the pain, ignoring Merritt's shouts, ignoring the warlock's outstretched hand. The tendrils snapped. June fell from the air. But she didn't hit the ground. She landed on her hands and feet. Bent. Twisted. Wrong. Then she lifted her head. Her eyes were white. Her mouth stretched into an unnatural grin. And her voice, her sweet, soft voice, was gone. A guttural, inhuman sound replaced it. The first devourer had awakened. Riley stumbled backward in horror. "June," she whispered. The creature that had been June tilted its head, sniffed the air. And lunged at her with ravenous hunger. June's body crashed into Riley with feral violence, knocking her onto the bone-strewn floor. Riley tried to scream, but June, or whatever June had become, moved too fast. Fingers like claws dug into Riley's shoulders, pinning her, breath hot and rotten rushing across her face. "June, please," Riley choked. The creature's mouth opened far too wide. Skin tore. Joints cracked. A snarl rumbled from deep inside her, hungry, eager, wrong. Riley shoved upward with all her strength, bracing a forearm against June's throat. It barely slowed her down. June's bones shifted beneath her skin, contorting. Her eyes rolled like something inside her head was moving them for her. "June, stop." For a split second, one heartbeat, June hesitated. Her jaw twitched. Her fingers loosened. Some tiny piece of the woman she had been flickered behind those white, dead eyes. Then the warlock whispered. "Feed." And June lunged again. Riley screamed, grabbing a rusted femur from the floor and jamming it between June's snapping teeth. The creature shrieked, clawing at the bone. "Run!" Merritt yelled, pulling Riley to her feet. June hit the ground on all fours, shaking violently before twisting into a predatory stance, drool running down her chin. Riley choked on her own breath. "I can't leave her." "That's not her." Merritt roared. "She's gone." The devourer formerly June screeched and sprang forward like a rabid spider. Riley and Merritt sprinted through the cavern as June's claws scraped stone behind them. Torches fell as she barreled past, spilling sickly green flames across the floor. "She'll chase us until she eats us," Merritt panted. "They never tire." Ahead of them, a narrow tunnel branched off into darkness. Merritt shoved Riley in that direction. "Go. Now." Riley hesitated. The warlock stood on the altar steps, watching her with eerie calm. His bone mask glowed faintly. His voice slithered through the cavern like smoke. "You cannot run forever, little singer." Riley's stomach twisted. "Why us? Why our band? Why pick us?" The warlock tilted his head as if amused. "Your music shook the dead inside this earth. It woke them. It fed them. You fed me." Riley's heart dropped. Their screaming guitar solos. Their thunderous drums. Their raw, guttural vocals. Their sound had awakened this nightmare. We didn't know, Riley whispered. No one ever does, the warlock replied. June screeched behind them, snapping her newly formed teeth. Riley and Merritt plunged into the tunnel as the warlock raised his staff and whispered an incantation that made the skulls around him vibrate. The cavern sealed behind them with a thunderous crack, splitting stone and bone alike. They plunged into pitch darkness. Riley gasped for breath. He sealed June on the other side. For now, Merritt said, though he didn't sound relieved. She'll find another way. They always do. Riley trembled, leaning against the wall. This is the worst nightmare I've ever. A voice echoed from deeper in the tunnel. A voice she recognized. Soft. Melodic. Singing. June. Except the words were distorted, wrong, like someone was stretching her voice through a broken throat. Her lullaby twist screamed into a death chant. Riley covered her ears, shaking violently. No, make it stop. Merritt grabbed her shoulders. He's using her voice. The warlock twists the souls he takes. He corrupts their sound into his choir. Choir, Riley repeated numbly. You mean, there are more? Other victims? Merritt's silence was answer enough. They continued moving, the tunnels growing tighter, the air colder. Strange humming started vibrating the walls, like distant chanting, layered voices scraping against one another. Riley stopped suddenly. Merritt. Up ahead, the tunnel opened into another chamber. Dozens, no, hundreds, of figures stood there. Twisted. Bound. Masked. Their bodies hung suspended from the ceiling by sinewy cords like grotesque puppets. Their mouths, stitched, torn, sealed, or stretched, moved in silent rhythm. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. The warlock's choir. Riley gagged. He does this to all of them. All the people taken. Yes, Merritt whispered. He consumes their humanity. What remains becomes part of his song, forever. Riley stared in horror at the center of the chamber. The choir turned their heads toward her, every single one, perfectly synchronized. Mouths opened. Eyes widened. And they exhaled one word in 1,000 broken voices. Hungry. Riley stumbled back, trembling violently. Merritt, we have to run, now. But Merritt didn't move. His face had gone pale, his eyes wide with recognition and dread. They're calling for me, he whispered. The choir leaned forward as one, reaching toward him. With skeletal hands. Merritt. Riley screamed. But it was too late. The choir surged. Riley turned and ran as the sound of tearing flesh and Merritt's final scream filled the chamber behind her. She was alone. Hunted. And the warlock was almost done preparing his final meal. Her. The town burned behind them, flames licking the night sky like the tongues of starving beasts. But the fire didn't sound like fire. It screamed. Each crackle carried a shrill, agonized wail, the trapped voices of those the warlock had consumed. Lola staggered through the trees, one arm wrapped around Harper's waist. Harper's leg was torn open, bone shining through shredded flesh, but she refused to slow down. Keep going, Harper hissed. We can't. We can't let him reform. They all knew the truth, the warlock wasn't dead. Destroying his body only fed whatever ancient thing lived beneath the town. The earth still pulsed under their feet, slow, rhythmic, and hungry. Behind them, Jinx stumbled, clutching her blood-soaked guitar case. Inside it, wrapped in torn shirts, was the warlock's grimoire. She could feel it vibrating like a heart freshly torn from a chest. He's still talking to me, Jinx whispered, her voice paper-thin. He says He says the real feast hasn't started. Lola didn't answer. She couldn't form words. Her mind replayed the last minutes in the chapel, Kira's body being lifted into the air like a sacrifice, her scream cut short as invisible jaws snapped shut. The warlock laughing as he dissolved into a storm of black veins. The altar splitting open like skin pulled apart. And the second heartbeat, the deeper one, answering from below. They burst through the tree line, into a clearing where the tour van sat crooked, hood still popped open. They'd abandoned it hours ago, thinking they'd never have the chance to escape. Now it felt like the last lifeboat on a sinking ship. "Get in!" Lola yelled. Jinx shoved the grimoire against her chest and limped to the passenger door. Harper crawled into the back seat, groaning as every movement pulled at her torn leg. Lola jumped behind the wheel, turned the key. The engine coughed. She tried again. Another sputter. "Don't do this to me," Lola whispered. "Not now." The forest behind them rustled. Leaves shook. Branches bent. Something was pushing through. Something massive. "Start the damn van." Harper screamed. Lola slammed her palm against the dashboard and twisted the key again. The engine roared to life. At that exact moment, the trees behind them exploded outward. A shape towered above them, blotting out what little moonlight the night had left. At first Lola thought it was a mutant deer, its legs long and crooked, its antlers branching like skeletal fingers. But the longer she looked, the more the creature changed. Flesh bubbled across its frame. Its ribs stretched outward like spines. Its skull twisted from human to animal to something in between. The warlock's final form. The devourer he had been summoning piece by piece. Its voice rolled across the clearing like thunder underwater. "You cannot leave. You are the last course." Lola floored the gas. The van lurched forward, tires spinning in mud before catching traction. The creature lunged, claws raking the back bumper. The whole van jerked violently. Harper screamed. "Floor it, Lola." Jinx yelled. The devourer ran alongside them, impossibly fast for something so huge. Its limbs elongated with each stride, bones crackling like wet branches. Its jaw split open into 3 sections, revealing rows of needle teeth slick with saliva. Lola swerved, bouncing the van over rocks and roots, but the creature stayed with them, scraping its claws across the metal like it was peeling a fruit. It lunged again. This time, Jinx reacted. She threw open the passenger door and hurled the grimoire into the night. The creature shrieked, a piercing, high-frequency sound that shattered the passenger window. The grimoire burst into blue flame midair. Then into white flame. Then into black flame. The creature roared in agony as its body ripped inward, sucked toward the burning book. Limbs folded wrong. Bones imploded. Skin tore. It wasn't dying. It was being reclaimed. Dragged back to whatever hell had lent it life. The forest shook with its screams as it collapsed into itself, shrinking into a mass of writhing black veins before disappearing entirely. Silence swallowed the night. Lola didn't stop driving until the road widened and a distant highway sign appeared through the trees. Harper leaned her head back, breath shaky. "Did we win?" "No," Jinx whispered. "We survived." Lola kept her eyes on the road. "And now?" Jinx stared out the broken window at the burning horizon behind them. "Now," she said, voice heavy, "we tell the world what lives out there." But deep in the forest, beneath the ashes of the town, something pulsed once. Slow. Hungry. Waiting. The end.